our mayor, Mr. Manny Cid.
No, thank you, Fred, for that gracious introduction. So, yeah, today, as you guys can see, we have our podcast crew, and I'll give you guys a little bit of the history. I really got to give Fred some credit because when we talked about this last year of creating a podcast at City Hall, we needed seed money. We needed some dollars to fund the entire operation. And when we went to Fred, we were like, look, not only is this going to be an educational podcast, but it'll have a social component. And that social component, that community component, was that we were partnering with a high school. When we called the high school, we said, hey, we're thinking of this. What do you guys think? They were like, okay, we're all in. The first time they sent over a teacher and about 7 students, and it literally has evolved to where it's at today. There's 90 students in the Broadcast Academy at the school. And there's 3 teachers dedicated to that Broadcast Academy. Actually, 2 of them are here. We have Alberto, who's one of the top producers and editors of videos in South Florida. And you have Perez, who travels the world with the Harlem Globetrotters. Pretty cool stuff. And they're actually teaching 90 kids on how to broadcast podcasts, how to broadcast sports games, on how to do a multitude of things, which those are really the skills of the future. So just wanted to thank you, Fred, for doing that, because it's truly remarkable. So our town's economic health, right? Economic development, how we talk about what role does government play in that? One thing that I always look at, that it's a good gauge on economic health for a community, it's how many homes are for sale, right? Usually if you see a community and all the homes are for sale, you're in trouble. There's 31 homes today in the town. I'm sorry to all the realtors because there's no inventory, but it is a good sign of economic opportunity and viability of a community.
So I've been living in Miami Lakes. I grew up in Hialeah, but we moved to Miami Lakes after we formed a family and stuff. We bought a home in Miami Lakes. So I've been living in Miami Lakes probably about 8 years now, and Miami Lakes has really, in the past 8 years for me, has really grown. I think there's a lot more businesses coming into Miami Lakes. But what I love most about Miami Lakes is that even though we're growing, it still feels like a town. So it's very homey. So I have my office in Miami Lakes. My kids go to school in Miami Lakes. My husband works in Miami Lakes. So I really don't like to leave Miami Lakes unless I really have to.
So when I got elected, obviously I served with Frank Mingo and Cesar Mestre, who are here today. And we had a lot of great things going for us as a community. Right, we had low crime rate. We have the lowest crime rate in town history. We have a beautiful tree canopy. We have great schools. But there was one issue. There was one major issue that I believe was a problem that we had to tackle. But trying to see how local government does that was Main Street. Main Street was an asset that was underperforming, that wasn't doing well, that was left behind in the times. Back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, I used to hang out here. If you hung out on Main Street, raise your hand, please. I know everybody, at some point, you all hung out on Main Street. But 80s and 90s and 2000s, Main Street was the place to be. Main Street was the spot to be. Everybody wanted to be on Main Street. But what happened was, you had Pembroke Pines that created, what's that area called? Pembroke Mall, Pembroke Gardens. You had Weston downtown, Doral creating all the different downtowns. You have Brickell creating their own downtown. So the reality is that how you guys are eating lunch right now, all those communities were eating our lunch and eating our lunch on a daily basis. And we're competing. The reality is that we're competing for people, for money, for assets, for different things. So I said to myself, and I brought it up to my colleagues, I was like, what can we do to bring Main Street back? How do we do this? Well, the first step that we had to do was go to the core issue. We had to talk to the businesses throughout our nation, not here locally only, but our businesses throughout our nation to see why they're not moving to the center core of our city. So I remember we funded, and Cesar and Frank were on there, we funded money for the town to start visiting what's called the ICSC. It's the conference where everybody gets together in Orlando. Everybody travels from all over the United States to Orlando, and they make deals. You literally sit at tables. you pitch your community and people make deals to come here. If it's Cheesecake Factory, if it's whatever. And I remember the first year Caesar went and he was there representing the town. We had this beautiful booth showcasing Miami Lakes, talking about Miami Lakes. I believe the chamber was there, the Economic Development Committee, and the feedback we kept getting, especially when it came to Main Street, was twofold. Was that there wasn't enough foot traffic in the surrounding center core, and there wasn't enough disposable income in that center core to sustain that type of investment that we needed.
I believe that business should be left alone by government, basically, to let markets decide how they work and everything else. My most important job, I think, as an elected official is to make sure that we have the best environment for business to thrive and to coexist and work together with their clientele. That's what I think the most important basis for government should be.
So we said, okay, let's go back again next year. Let's keep having those conversations. I think we won like 3 years in a row, right, Caesar, up there. And the same feedback happened over and over and over. It was like, look, we don't want to be on Main Street. There's not enough, or even in the center core of your city, there's not enough foot traffic. There's not enough disposable income. And that's what businesses need, right? Especially in an area where you need that type of foot traffic. So, to the credit of the Grams, Phil Wiley kept hearing this same feedback because he would be up there with Caesar, and then I went up there 1 year with him as well, and he kept hearing that same feedback. So the Grams came to the town and they said, "Hey, what do you guys think about creating the town center district to bring back Main Street, to bring Main Street back alive? What do you all feel about that?" And I remember my colleagues at the time, we were interested because we got the feedback. And I think that's very important as businesses or in government, making fact-based decisions, right? Be it if you're making a decision on increasing or you do braces in different offices, you got to see what those demographics look like, what those economic demographics look like. So we understood that we had to increase the density in the center core of our city. But we also knew that it wasn't going to be easy, right? We knew that there was going to be a lot of pushback when it happened. So the Grams came to us. They proposed the entire center district. We did changes like on-street parking. So now before the on-street parking didn't count as part of the calculations for new businesses. So we said, hey, you know what? We're going to allow on-street parking as part of that calculation. We're also going to allow for the rezoning of the east side of 67th Avenue, right? Where you see everything that's happening over there. A lot of people came to us at the beginning, and this is where leadership is so important, especially the members that were in the council back then. A lot of people had come to us at the time that didn't see that same vision and said, hey, don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't do it. It's going to hurt our town. Don't do it. The council, based on the feedback that we got from businesses, said, you know what? It's the right thing to do. Let's move forward. But there was one component that was missing, which was retail on that eastern portion. And I'll never forget the night that we're going to vote on town center district. We had the Grams were all excited. They came in. Everybody's excited. Everybody's happy. There were a lot of opponents to this, but also basing it on fact. We knew that millennials, in large part, are the people that were going to move our community forward. Right? They're the folks that had that disposable income, that were going to buy homes, that were going to raise their families here. So we said, hey, it's important to have retail on the bottom floor because millennials want to live somewhere where they can walk downstairs, get a haircut, go to the dentist, go to go wherever, everything you got to do should be within walking distance. And I remember that night we went to the Grams and we said, hey, there has to be retail. There has to be a retail component. So we incentivized it. It wasn't required. But fortunately, the Grams saw the same vision that the council saw at that time. They accepted that change. Retail was added in there. They thought it was going to be empty. I remember having those discussions. Oh, there's no way it's leased out like hotcakes. But what that has done to Main Street, now looking forward, even the people that were against what we did, which was a town center district, are enjoying the benefits today. When Chella's Beer Market came in, they came in as a 6-month contract. They said there was no way that our concept was going to be sustainable on Main Street. There is no way. And you know what? Today they succeeded so much that they're staying long term. Corner 6-7, which is one of the top high-end concepts. I believe your first one was in Aventura. Think about it. For them to go from Aventura to say, you know what, we're going to double down. We're going to bring in a high-end cocktail tapas concept to Main Street, and they doubled down, and now it's flourishing today. But you're seeing all that redevelopment. You're seeing all those changes. You're seeing the movie theater come back. $8 million have been invested into that movie theater, but it all goes back to that vote that folks like Caesar and Frank took several years ago. We could have taken, the easy route was to vote no and to say, you know what, we don't need these headaches. We don't need folks attacking us, but they did the right thing. They voted on the town center district, and all these years later, due to that vote, Main Street's back. The center core of our city is back. It's back to literally where it was in these 80s, 90s, and 2000. The movie theaters redeveloped, new restaurants are coming in, things are happening once again. You got the Garrison opening up, which is a really cool concept, with live music, with beer, like 80 different beers on tap. You got all these things happening in the center core of our town, but they all happened because of that vote that night. If we voted no, none of that stuff would have been happening today. We took the hits up front, but all these years later, that's the type of legacy that council left back then. A lot of the decisions that were made 4 or 5 years ago, you're seeing them come to fruition today. So I saw both of them here today, and I just wanted to give them kudos because they were part of that decision-making process.
I'm a homegrown Miami Laker. We lived here for over 20 years. Went to Bob Graham, and obviously a proud Matter Lakes alumni. You know, when I attended Matter Lakes, most of my classmates, we grew up in the parks in Miami Lakes. You know, there's over 100 parks in Miami Lakes. What Miami Lakes is really known for is being a little haven in South Florida, specifically Miami-Dade. And what I mean by that is the only comparison to Miami Lakes is Coral Gables. So you have the tree-lined streets, you have the pocket parks, you have the major parks, and even more so is you have a lot of young professionals that live in Miami Lakes and a lot of young families. So that's something that Miami Lakes has to offer in comparison to the rest of the county. Not only just the park system, but the safety in terms of the public safety system that we have here in our police and fire departments. But as a whole, Miami Lakes offers something special that the rest of the county, I personally think, doesn't have.
I appreciate you all. I appreciate you coming out. Miami Lakes is on the rise. We've always been on the rise, but now more than ever, thank you guys for believing in our community. We're doing amazing as a town. I can tell you our coffers are doing well. Our police department is at its highest level of staffing ever, which I know that was a priority of our residents. When every time that conversation always comes up in the budget, the priority has always been, and you could ask Frank and see, police. You have a safe community, you have that, and that's something we take a lot of pride. There are things that we got to work on, right? We're fixing up a lot of and I'll touch upon this, tree canopy. One of the bad things about our trees is that they destroy our sidewalks, right? So, and it's very, very expensive to constantly change that. When the town was first created, they put in a lot of oak trees, a lot of black olives in areas where there wasn't enough capacity. Southern oaks grow in Georgia and in different places in acres and acres and acres. And we're telling these southern oaks to grow in a 2x2 little hole. So that is a challenge that we're working on right now. We're actually fixing up most of our sidewalks, but it's how do you maintain that long term, because it's going to keep happening. So if you saw what Fred did, have you guys driven by the AutoMall, the new parking garage out there? So here's what's interesting. What Fred did out there, where the trees are planted, he put in like this soft concrete, this soft paper. So when the roots grow, there's nowhere to break. It doesn't break. It bends with it all. So that's something that it is expensive, but that is something we're looking at. I know how much everybody loves our tree canopy and everything that's happening. But again, Main Street's back. Things are happening. Our town's moving and shaking. Thank you guys for coming out today, and know that you always have a friend of me and of my former colleagues and everybody. We believe in our community and we love you all. So thank you guys very much.